What a wonderful morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. Hope your week's gone fantastically. Hope you're enjoying that bit of rare sunshine that we've got coming here. Hopefully I'm going to get to enjoy it later on today. So today, have you ever looked at your business future and thought to yourself, actually, I'm really going to be quite nervy, quite shit scared? Are you optimistic? Are you somewhere in the middle? Do you ever contemplate the future? If you don't actually think about your future, that's probably you're missing a trick and something's going wrong. So today's show is fundamentally about the future of your business, how you can take a bit more control of that business and direct it to where you want to. In my mindset, in my head, I'm thinking you're business owners. I'm thinking in my mindset, you want to make money. If you don't want to make money in your business, then you've got a hobby on your hands. But I'm thinking also we've got lots of overwhelm, lots of advice, lots of tips, lots of ways that people encourage us that what we need to do, if we do this, we do that, and the other, then success is in front of us. It's a little bit more than that. Now, added to that, I'm extremely lucky. I'm pretty excited as well. This is my excited look that I've got a very special guest coming on later on. She's in the green room at the moment, enjoying the very limited rider we've made available to her, enjoying her mountain spring water, etc. I've got a good friend of mine, Joe North. I should be true. It's actually Dr. Joe North here. She can tell you a little bit more about what she does and how she helps businesses. Let's just say for the time being, she's a black belt ninja, if such a thing exists, in innovation, creativity, and strategy. So more from Joe in about 10 minutes here. So let me give you my short take about what needs to happen for you to actually make a success out of your business. Now, Joe may come on and actually disagree with that, but that's great. That's what a conversation is all about. First thing is, it's the biggest battle that any business owner will have, whether you are an acorn business, whether you're a massive business, whether you're an established business at the start of your business journey. The biggest battle you're ever going to have is the gap between your ears, i.e. your mindset. And your mindset is about attitude. It's about what your inner core is, your value, your behaviors, how you react to things. Typically for a lot of us, by the way, those inner workings of our brain, those inner voices that we hear tend to be other people's here, but more of that are perhaps on a future broadcast. But attitude to how things are reacting, how you cope with things is an absolutely critical ingredient in any degree of sustaining, let alone growing your business here. We're talking about some people, what they might describe it as positive growth mindsets, if you want to give a nice grandiose title. And that means we just have an attitude to risk that's not necessarily reckless, but it's optimistic. We're willing to change things. If you continue to do things in the same manner and you're making mistakes, then something's going wrong here. You've got to refix that. There are people who also have what I call fixed mindsets. So that rigidity, they don't try anything differently. They always do things the same way. Now, if that's providing success, however you measure that, you could say that's carry on. But life doesn't stay static. The landscape in front of us doesn't stay the same. I would certainly not recommend you abandoning a certain way of doing things. So in the world of numbers, in the world of getting to grip and understanding what's going on, that is something you've got to stick to, whatever direction that you take your business. The other thing I think you've got to really think about is in terms of capability. Now, typically for most business owners, myself included, the challenge isn't be good at what you do. So it's not about the quality of your own particular skill set. CPD obviously is a great thing to carry on. We can always learn new things, but it's about capability and capacity in other areas of your business. So if you are somebody who makes things to sell, you may have lots of customers knocking on your door, which is great for business. But behind the scenes, if you don't have the ability to make that level of product, if you don't have the ability to get it out the door on time, if you don't have the ability to distribute it, you're basically going to be screwed here. So you need to really think about having that internal capacity. Other things that I'm just going to touch upon, if we think about the world of social media, and it's very difficult to ignore that, even if you hide under your duvet, social media is going to find you there. So you can't completely dissociate from it. And for a business these days, social media is a vital communication tool, a vital operational tool, a vital promotional tool to engage and connect with your customers. Now, some people think it's easy. I'll just stick on a few posts, but it's a talent, it's a skill. How to use it correctly, how to use it the most effectively, maybe a skill you either possess yourself, you develop that skill, or you buy in that skill. But you've got to think about all the different capabilities to deliver what you need to do, from that perfect stranger to that happy customer. And the third thing, which I think is really vital that a lot of us miss out on, is some way we've got to ask that question to ourselves: how are we actually doing? It's about performance, it's about measuring our performance, it's about monitoring our performance, and it's reacting when things don't go quite the way we expect them to. Now, what that could be typically, I've got an end destination. I'm a big fan of having some idea of what that end destination is, figuring out how I'm going to get to that destination. And as I progress on that sort of business journey, looking to execute my business story, I've got to monitor myself, put myself milestones. And if I reach milestone number 1, tick, give myself a congratulatory slap on the back, maybe a celebratory drink or a meal, and I can progress. If it doesn't quite meet it, then it doesn't mean it's the end of the road. Then what we can do, we can figure out why we haven't quite achieved what we have. So you've got to be able to measure your performance, monitor your performance. And it's not just big boy stuff, by the way. You could be a solopreneur. You could be an established business that's relatively large. But if you don't measure and monitor how you're doing, you're basically going to be chasing your tail. And we're not talking about Pets Club here. So that's really quite vital and quite key. Now, before we continue here, we're talking about all this stuff that's going on. Joe's going to be talking about some valuable content. There's loads of stuff. Have a look. Check out the content that we've got that we can allow you free of charge. We're not going to be stalking you. So podcasts, blogs, people consume content in lots of different ways. So check out at the end of it, I'll provide some links. But what I want to do first of all is check with Joe's team, see if she's ready to come and speak to us. Perfect. And I just want to say a brief hello to those of you who are coming on replay. Fantastic. Go back to the beginning. You're going to have some great value. If you're looking to take your business forward, you've got to get to grips with what's going on here. Take some of those lessons, internalize them, adapt them for your own business. Let me give a quick hello and shout out to a couple of our supporters. So let's just show them on screen. Karen, morning to you. Hope you're well. And we've got another guest here as well. Desmond, I'm not sure about the play gun, so we'll take you off there. I'm sure, hopefully that's a toy one. And we're not selling couches, by the way, Desmond, but good to see you nevertheless. So couches, I think it's going to be more prosperous for you, Desmond, than what you're displaying. Now, without further ado, let me just bring on my wonderful guest, Joe, who's now going to come on stream.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Joe. Are they looking after you well in the guest room?
Yeah, it's really good. A really good green room. Thank you.
Okay. No expense spared. Our budget is probably about zero. So thank you very much for slumming it there as well. Now, Joe, what I'm going to ask you here, so just tell the viewers, the listeners here, tell us a little bit about you. I've called you quite rightly a ninja, a black belt ninja. Tell us the viewers what your business is about, please.
Yeah, sure. So I run a company called The Big Bang. And I have an online brand called Ideatime, but essentially I'm passionate about making great ideas happen, because ideas are at the core of all our business success. We need ideas every day to solve problems and make things happen. We need ideas to take us forward and think about, that strategic vision that you were talking about earlier.
For sure.
So the quality of the ideas that we have and our ability to turn those ideas into action is really what I'm all about, and to do that from a business perspective. And I work with customers all over the world, from big corporates all the way through to pre-startup businesses and everything in between.
So that's that thing about ideas then, Joe. It's not just the bigger companies that can do it. A solopreneur, an individual who's just about starting their business journey, it's as applicable to them as well.
Oh, absolutely. The world is always changing, and it's so important that as businesses, we keep up with that, and that we sort of stay at least on the curve, if not slightly ahead of the curve. And we need ideas all the time. We need to be innovating to stay fresh, stay current, and stay successful.
So I'm fascinated, Joe. How did you actually come into this line of business then? What's there? something that sort of prompted you? What's
So
your own backstory?
Yeah, I started. I'm actually a linguist by training, so I did French and Spanish at university a very long time ago, and then wanted to show people I could add up. So
Yeah.
I came out of uni and became an accountant actually for a short.
Oh, really?
period.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed.
You're in good
that.
company.
Yeah, and I've done all sorts of things in between that. I've helped. I've worked in Asda, helping with a big turnaround. I've worked in for another sort of supermarket chain as well, doing sort of new product development and all of that.
Yeah.
I've worked in transport as a director of a big bus and rail group for a couple of big train companies as well. But I've always been on the commercial side, the bit about developing business, gaining market share, improving customer experience to really drive additional income through new ideas and add value to the bottom line. So I've always been about that. And I wondered why some people were really out there and trying things and being entrepreneurial, either at work or in their own business, at a corporate or in their own business. And why was that? And some people weren't. So I did an MBA and then followed that up with a PhD. Which I completed just in 2016. So I was, I'm 50 now, so I was in my late 40s when I completed that part-time.
Listen, like me, you've got a good skincare regime there. So I'm interested because that's an MBA is quite an investment of time and energy anyhow. What is it that made you want to progress onto the PhD? And is it a relevant thing, do you think, in your line of work?
Absolutely. So my PhD is about innovation and entrepreneurship in the real world. And it's about looking at what makes people successful, what makes businesses successful, and where those differentiators are. So I have an academic background, but I am 95% through and through. I'm in the commercial environment doing this stuff day in, day out for businesses around the world.
So you've got a great background in terms of understanding what's out there, presumably also not just in the UK but overseas as well. And you're able to sort of distill that and actually apply that to businesses.
Yeah, and I think the same, there are similar principles. There's no like one easy formula. There never is. But there are core principles that I think are relevant to every business. And actually at every point in time, whatever's going on in the world, it's about staying current, staying relevant, keep innovating, and be really clear on where your difference is. And that's the really important thing. The other thing, of course, is loads of people have great ideas, but they don't get around to doing anything about them. They sit on them. So having ideas is great, but it's really important to turn those ideas into action, commercialize them, and make sure the business planning supports the creativity.
There's that old cliche that floats around always, isn't there? That I've heard that saying, ideas are 10 a penny, and a lot of people, I think, dismiss the idea of ideas, if that makes sense. And I would imagine without the idea, you don't actually have the business to begin with. So
that's right. That's right. And the ideas are unique to us. So ideas come from all the stuff we've experienced, seen, heard, read. They're very unique to us in terms of how we have those ideas. And it's important we have a lot of ideas because it's a numbers game. The more ideas we have, the more likely we are to have a good one. Plus, one really rubbish idea might lead to another rubbish idea, which actually then turns into a good one. So with having ideas, it's been demonstrated that actually having lots of them, you're more likely to hit on a good one.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So, Joe, in your sort of experience and research, and have you distilled anything down? So let's start with the negative, the reasons, the roadblocks, why people don't, for example, turn those ideas into something meaningful. What's the roadblocks that you found?
The roadblocks that I've found are that people say it's time. So money is one as well, but actually the number one roadblock from all the different pieces of research I've done are time. Having said that, when you unpack that word time, it covers a number of underlying real things that are getting in the way of people innovating in business. Okay. Some of that is confidence. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, but what if it doesn't work? And there are things that I do and work with people to explore the idea, work out whether or not it's going to work or not, and how to de-risk it. So confidence is one, know-how. is another. Well, I'm not quite sure how to go about it. Again, that's a problem that can be overcome. Sometimes it is genuinely time. People have too many things on the go. So we'll have a look at pruning and see where the priorities are and where the innovation fits in that. And sometimes it's funding and money. But there are actually all sorts of grants and things available for innovators in the UK. So lots of them local. So it's worthwhile checking those out.
So if I've sort of got the essence of what you're saying here, one of them is just in terms of, if you drill down that I don't have time to do that, it could be they don't have the skills, they don't have the ability necessarily to execute that idea.
Yeah,
one is about, I suppose, a confidence. It's the attitude to risk as well, I would imagine, that influences it. I don't know if you found it, but I found over the years it's weird, especially from a numbers guy like me, is actually funding isn't actually the major obstacle, in the sense of, if you've got something that's got legs, if you've got something that's actually got viability to it, then actually finding the money is probably not as difficult and problematic as we might think. Does that sound too simplistic?
I think it sounds absolutely right. And what I'd add to that is that in the early days, when you've got an idea and an innovation, then I really recommend you spend as little money as possible on testing it before you launch it. So use something called the lean startup principles, which are where you do the minimum you need to do, you spend the minimum, you get something out there which is a really good test to see if it's going to work or what you need to modify to make it work, and then start from there. And we're all in business to solve a customer's problem. So if what your innovation actually solves a real, genuine customer problem, and you communicate that, then you will start to see that innovation take off. It's when people want to scale, maybe invest in, it's really working, but then need to take it to the next level in terms of equipment, machinery, or whatever, that sometimes then the funding can be really useful. And
is this something that you can apply to service businesses as well as product businesses?
It applies to all sorts of businesses. If there's a great customer service idea or experience, or a new service to introduce to the market, that can be tested as well.
Oh, perfect. And so really, in the context of a business here, we're saying it doesn't really matter what size you are, doesn't matter what you provide. Presumably that business can inhabit the social enterprise space, the private space, the charity space. If you've got something that can solve somebody's dilemma, problem, or pain, and then great. And if somebody's stuck for ideas, are there ways and techniques or tips that you can share how people can create and generate ideas?
Yeah, so the way people can generate ideas really easily. So if you're stuck for an idea to solve a particular problem, then the research demonstrates that if you think about that problem, take in some information surrounding it, and then leave it alone and go and do something else for a while, you'll probably solve the problem subconsciously, and the answers will come by actually not actively working on it through the creative subconscious. And I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, but I promise you, this is academic neuroscience that I'm talking about here. You can also use different techniques, asking yourself great questions. So if you ask yourself and your team great questions, then that will stimulate great thinking and great answers. So think about, why is a great one to ask. Why are we doing this? Why is this working, or why is it not working? And how is a really good question as well. So open questions, and really just try and get into other things that you don't normally do. So if you want to be the best in whatever it is you do in your business, then looking at the best in your industry will, you're not going to differentiate yourself. You'll at best be a great copy of them. So look at where there's excellence outside. I've looked at the Formula One pit stop process to improve operational efficiency in small businesses that make things. I've looked very recently at how the European Space Agency designs products to help other businesses design products. There's all sorts of things you can do. So inspiration's all around us.
And would it be fair to say, I've always felt that however big your competitor, your business that you're looking at, there are always things that you can take away and adapt to your own circumstances. I'm thinking the Ryanair. So when Ryanair, for example, launched its low-cost model based on efficiency, customer service wasn't really a thing that Michael O'Leary was thinking about, but lots of other airlines, lots of other people emulated their processes in terms of turnaround efficiency and actually applied to their model. So that's something I presume that you can adapt to even a smaller scale business.
That's right. So Ryanair and EasyJet in particular, are documented as having used the Formula One pit stop process. Where they change everything, within about a second or so, to turn around engineering of planes, to improve turnaround time and keep planes in the air, but flying safely. But also the National Health Service have used that to improve patient procedures and actually, keep people safe when they're in hospital and in between intensive care particularly. So there's inspiration all around us, and what we do know is that great entrepreneurs are able to join the dots between things that other people see as being sort of random and disconnected. Entrepreneurs can see the link, they can make the link, and that's where the creativity comes from.
And I would imagine within that then, so in terms of going through these questions that you're asking, the how and the why, do you sometimes come across businesses that go through that process and actually they're thinking what we're actually currently doing may not be in our best business interest to carry that on? We might need to do something different, and we might need to actually evolve, and our businesses need to go into a different direction. So it can be, I would imagine, quite a painful process as well.
It can be. And the further that a business moves away from where the market is, the more painful, expensive and challenging that process is. I think it's more important to keep doing really small tweaks over time to make sure you're always there, rather than get complacent, get your head down and your bum up, not really blinkers on, not really thinking about what's going on in the world. And then you look up and you think, oh, we're not performing as well. Oh, heck, we've got a real job here to get back up to where we need to be.
So smaller wins, perhaps,
smaller wins. And then, but sometimes, the world changes and a big opportunity emerges. And then, really going for it. As well, Mahmood, you asked about ideas, and a lot of entrepreneurial ideas, of course, come from entrepreneurs that are, fed up with something, missing something, are dissatisfied with something. One of my favourite products is a slanket. I've got two of them. I probably should admit to this, which is a blanket with sleeves. When you sit on the settee, you've got the.
Oh, okay. I have seen that, like onesies, or they variation. Okay.
And that was invented by a student who was in his dorm at college in America, and his arm was getting cold when he sort of got his arm out to change channel with a remote control. So he got his mum to make him a blanket with sleeves. The other students really liked it, so they asked for them as well. And he started a business. He's now a multi-millionaire in his 20s, I think he is now, Gary Clegg, and he's doing great work in Africa, helping people get water and sanitation. So these problems don't have to be big problems. They can just be a really small, simple thing.
I mean, apart from obviously giving his mother royalties for that invention as well. So is it a question about sometimes just having a mindset that's different to actually be on the scan, be on the lookout for what's going on around you?
Yeah, and be alert to that, be alert to opportunity. And if you see something that isn't working or, isn't done right, then ask, how could that be put right? It can. There's always a way. It's just sometimes we haven't found the way, so we need to keep looking. And you think about, Uber and what they've done to taxis. They saw an opportunity that taxis, in their view, would be so much better. I'm not pro or anti Uber. I'm just, that
it's no ideas.
Yeah. So they put that solution in place and had some success with that.
So, Joe, listen, a couple of things here which coming into my mind. I'm going to put you on the spot here. We've got a couple of people on the live. I don't know if they've got any questions. If they fire up any questions now, are you okay? I know, put you on the spot. Are you able to? And would you be receptive if we just make it more widespread that we have you coming back on next week's show? Because I think I'd like to give people the opportunity to get questions and answers, and if you're able to put on the spot, and I'd like to talk to you separately. Would that be something that's going to fit in with your people in your diary?
I'd love to. Thank you very much. That's really good. Yeah. Really
fantastic.
Cool.
So here's the thing, just in terms of takeaways, this has been superb. Are there any things that you would recommend to somebody to say, like, okay, if you want to start this process, and I would imagine if you want to turn an idea into something, just like with most things in life, it's pretty challenging for one person to do it by themselves because they're so wrapped up in what they're doing. Are there any things that you would suggest that somebody might need to do differently in their behavior and their business to start trying to generate ideas in the way that you've suggested?
Yeah, I think the first thing actually is really simple, is get you the ideas out of your head onto paper and possibly into a laptop. I quite like it because we know that when you get a pen in your hand and a bit of paper, your brain works differently from when you're on a laptop. Empty your head, get those ideas out there, mind map it, make lists, whatever works for you. And by doing that, you can then start to think about how to move it forward. Think about what the end goal looks like, what your definition of success looks like for your idea.
For sure.
And then think about the big significant things you can do to get you there. The other thing I'd say is don't sit on it. Try and do something every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, something really super tiny that take you forward towards your idea, and you'll build momentum.
So out of this, whether you call it a brain dump, I remember years ago reading something by a guy called Dr. Edward de Bono. And he says, when you do a brain dump or whatever, don't actually eliminate anything at that stage, even if it looks ridiculous. Just get it out from here, document it, and then come back to it and then look at it. Does that make sense? And would you agree with that?
That's absolutely right, because your brain uses different functionality to come up with ideas and to innovate than it does to actually edit those ideas, critique them, and analyze them. So if you are having an idea, critiquing it, you're getting in your own way. It's like having a top of the range sports car and just, having to put your foot on the brake and drive around at 30 miles an hour. You're getting in your own way. So go for it with your ideas, empty your head, then have a cup of tea, do something else, come back, and then go, maybe get a highlighter and highlight the bits that you want to keep, So your brain's being a bit of a on one shoulder saying great idea, and on the other side of the shoulder saying actually that's not so good. So it's trying to make that right hand side of the shoulder, so to speak, just be quiet and just focus on the left hand side. I don't know, that's a rubbish way of putting it. Yes, so it's the right creative brain, let it go, let it roll, and then when you want to edit, the left more analytical brain comes in. I'll give you a 30-second reason why that is.
Please do.
When we're focused on analysis and decision making and being logical, what happens is our frontal lobes come into play, and they block the rest of the information connecting around our brain more widely. Okay. So that we focus and we don't see everything. So it's really important that you let your brain, make those connections. That's how ideas happen. It's two thoughts coming together for the first time and making those neural connections. Let that happen, and then when you've done that, focus. And shave out what's really not helpful and focus on what is.
It's definitely, from what you've said there, is you do that. And what's your preference by that? Do you prefer to write things, or do you prefer to put stuff in a laptop?
I'm a big believer in pen, paper, and actually multimedia, different colours.
Okay.
Research supports that. And I think as well, we spend so much time we're on our phones, we're on our laptop, especially in, through lockdown, where we're all Zooming and Teaming and whatever else we're doing. So get it away from the computer and have a cup of tea and enjoy it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I have to say, when I take my own advice and your advice and actually write things down, I like flow charts, visuals, something that shows me that there is. I think it's quite useful. Obviously, the only downside about paper, so obviously scan it in, is you can end up losing the paper or whatever. But that's so. I did pick up on something as well. You mentioned, which I get that, and I think it's brilliant, that you've got to make this eventually go to a destination point. So underpinning it all, there's going to be a plan that's involved.
Yes, absolutely. And you're innovating all the way through the plan. It's not like you have the ideas in the beginning and then it stops. You might have your idea about the thing you want to do in the beginning, but this different type of thinking. So when you're being creative, you're creating choices. And then when you're being analytical, you're selecting choices. So, and it's not a linear process. It's not, we have an idea, we want to put it into action, but we might have to go back a step or two because, we learn something and then we go again. So really just keep at it and think about when things don't work. That's learning. That's giving you information about how you can make it work going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, Thomas Edison, I think, took that on board about 10,000 times, depending what the stats are. So really, it's not about literally a linear step one, then you do step two. You could go forward, go backwards, you go side to side. I presume occasionally you're going to crash as well. Occasionally things are going to go wrong. And I suppose if you look at it as a learning opportunity, then, that's going to be great. So crashing and making mistakes, I presume, is an inherent part of the process.
It is an inherent part of the process. And a couple of things on that. The first thing is that you mentioned growth mindset earlier. People with a growth mindset will see that as information to improve. The second thing is, if you are only spending what you need, the minimum, and being really efficient about what you're putting out there, you're not investing too much too early on, then that's really helpful as well. That means that you can, test fast, fail fast, learn fast, go again, test fast. You're always repeating that process.
Yeah, and I suppose if we look at most of the things we take for granted now, even this just talking to you in virtual space here, whether it's my mobile phone on my left, which hasn't gone off, thankfully, is they've come to us because of that same process that you're describing.
That's right. Yes. So, and there are different ways of doing things, and I think it's also about finding the way. Every entrepreneur works differently, and it's about the one thing. If entrepreneurs want to get significant competitive advantage, it's really helpful for them to understand their own mind, how they have ideas, how the mind works, and where their particular strengths are, and really play on those. Also, be mindful of the things you're not great at, and other people can help you with that. Listen,
Joe, this is fantastic stuff. Now, that's very gracious of you. I'm going to have you back on next week's show. I'm just going to share a couple of positive comments with you. I think for those on replay, if they post comments subsequently, Joe, are you going to be okay to respond to those either immediately or we can pick them up for next week?
Absolutely. Yes, of course. Love to reply to comments.
Right. So let's have a look. So there's Richard from Wellbacks. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. Thumbs up there. Richard doesn't give his thumbs up easily. Karen Maxfield runs a different company there as well. So listen, guys, if you are coming out on replay, if you've got questions, pop them into the feed, pop into the comment. Joe's given us some great value. She's talked about, listen, woo-woo is part of the business. So there is science behind what Joe is talking about. I obviously love Joe on the program because she gives great value, great advice. It resonates with me as a numbers guy, as a planning guy there as well. So next week, I haven't quite figured out what the show's going to be about. So me and Joe will talk offline about what it is. Hope you've enjoyed it. What I forgot to do, Joe, and it's the excitement here, I'm going to broadcast this after the show. So what I forgot to do, everyone, so this is my own faux pas, but Joe's details at the bottom, I'm going to share them after you. I don't compliment people lightly, by the way, but she is an innovator extraordinaire. Check out her details. I'll publish them after the show there as well. Joe, I'm sorry. I hope your guys don't come after me, breach of rider, for not broadcasting that throughout the whole show itself. It's been some great value, Joe. Thank you very much for sharing the time coming with us today. Look forward to catching up with you for next week. We'll talk offline. Everybody, hope you've enjoyed what Joe's got to share. Remember what we said at the beginning, mindset, capability, performance, blend it with fantastic information from Joe. And we're going to talk to you more about this next week. Have a great Saturday. Ciao. Joe, have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Perfect. Let's go into some great takeout music.